Hi, so here we're going to go over a basic machine learning workflow. And the first activity that we're going to discuss here is the representation. So when we are training the machine learning model, we need to have a way to represent the data. And we call this representation or feature representation. So depending on the kind of the way we represent the feature, we may need to employ different types of algorithms. So the feature representation is essentially, okay, how is your data, what does your data look like? Is it a CSV, a regular CSV with columns of features and rows of instances? Or is it, how do we get the data? Is it image data? Is it like a picture? Or is it a real object like apples or coconut? So we need to understand how the data is represented. Once the data is represented and then we feed it into the model, there's also an evaluation process that we need to do. So we talked a little bit about the training and of the model and then predicting a new feature, a new object. But then also we need to evaluate. So what criterion distinguishes a good versus a bad classifier? A measure that we usually use is percent of correct predictions. So that's the accuracy measure. And then after you evaluate the model, which we can do, there's an set of optimization activities, optimization questions. So maybe the first go at it, the evaluation wasn't very good. So for example, if we're using the k nearest neighbor classifier, which we need to determine the k parameter, which is how many other data points we're going to consider in the model for it to make a prediction. Maybe we need to change it. Maybe we said 3 k for 3, but k equals 3, but then no, that wasn't good. So let's try k equals 5. So that's about how to search for the settings or parameters that give the best classifier for the choose the best classifier parameters that increase the evaluation metrics. So there's a little bit back and forth here in this optimization and reevaluation process. So let's talk a little bit about feature representation. So for example, when we have an email, let's say we have email, we want to create an algorithm that identifies if an email is spam or not spam. So an email is going to look something like this, right? We have all this information. It's kind of structured in terms of the to and the from and the subject, but then there is a little bit more free text here. And then what do we do? Well, what can we do to represent this as data to fit into the model? Well, actually, we can create a data frame like we have worked with before. And actually, each word may be a feature in the data frame. So for example, the word to happens one time, the word Chris happens 2 times, the word Brooks happens 1 time, the word from happens 1 time. And then we could also have, so that's the feature. There's a column, which sometimes we call feature, is the main kind of feature here in this data set, but we can have others like from is also a feature, and then from is Danielle, or this could be the email, actually not the name, but the email from, and so this would be the email of the person, and so on. So we can break it down in different ways, but one feature of this data set would be the words. And the count is the counts of those words. Because maybe, an email that has lots of particular word could be predictive of if it's a spam or not. Another kind of object, a picture, where we can actually represent the picture in terms of pixels, right? So there's several pixels with different levels of colors. And we can use that also to feed into the model to predict, well, is this a person, is this a car, is this a dog, and so on. And there's location information and there's color information, essentially. There's just, right, there's either color or location. You're either here in the grid, you are each pixel has location and color. It's kind of a greenish, and you can turn that into RGB, red, green, blue values. So you can create a data frame like that as well of pixels. And then our sea creatures of the objects, we can also represent that in terms of a data frame, as we have looked at. So there's different kinds of features, the color, the stripes, if there's multiple stripes, the length, whether this object come from the water or not, and so on. So all these attributes that we can use, and essentially we're always turning it into kind of like a multi-dimensional array of features and their values. So we're going to be working with this example of fruit and trying to predict what a fruit is based on particular characteristics of an object. And as we can see here, well, we have mass of a fruit, we have height, we have width, we have color, and we can represent all that into a list of features: mass, width, height, color, color score. We can create a number for different colors. And so that's the data that we have. And notice this one is labeled, so we also have the name of the fruit. We need that labeled data because we're going to, here there's a supervised kind of problem. But the first thing is we need this feature representation. And we can take an object and represent it. The idea here is that we can take an object and represent it in this multidimensional format, multidimensional array, also known as data frame or two-dimensional table of features and instances. And then we feed that to the classifier, as we talked about. So here there are many Python tools that we're going to be using, especially the scikit-learn library. There's a number of functions there with a lot of models that we can use. There's this beautiful train and test split function that we can use a lot. It makes things easier. There's the NumPy library as well that does all kinds of work with numbers and data frames and arrays. And also there's SciPy computing tools, which provides another set of statistical tools that we can use as well in our work on this in Python. So next, we're going to be talking about an example of a machine learning problem and how to employ the k-nearest neighbors algorithm, and I'll see you there.